Jack Raynor sat alone in the cockpit of his Scout-class rescue vessel, the Nova Wren, orbiting what looked like the shattered remains of an alien freighter. Its hull was broken wide open, large steel ribs bent outward like a corpse gasping for air. Nothing about it made sense. The ship wasn't registered with any known transit systems. The markings across its hull were half-burned, their alien script marred by fire and impact scars. He glanced at the scanner display again, one blinking light, one life form. "Still alive," Jack whispered, tapping the panel. His voice sounded too loud in the small cabin. He leaned back, exhaling slowly, and rubbed his forehead. 1,000 things told him to report this and wait. 1,000 more told him it'd be too late. Jack strapped on his suit. "Hold on," he muttered. He moved quickly. Years of solo missions had made him fast, precise. The Nova Wren latched magnetically onto the derelict ship's hull. Jack stepped into the airlock, his oxygen tank secure, tools clipped to his belt. The decompression hissed in his ears before he stepped into silence. Outside, space was vast and still. The only motion was debris slowly drifting, shards of steel, broken panels, and once-living things now frozen in the vacuum. He didn't look at the bodies. His boots clanked as he floated toward a breached entry hatch. It looked like someone had tried to close it mid-attack, only for the door to get wedged open by a blast. Inside was chaos, corridors ripped open, lights flickering dim red, fluids frozen mid-splash. Jack's handheld scanner blinked. The signal was faint, barely traceable, still moving. He followed the trail through a twisted mess of hallways, stepping over ruptured pipes and shattered consoles. Then he saw it, a sealed chamber, smoke curling from the edges. He peered through the fogged glass panel. Inside was a small girl. She had bluish shimmering skin and wide glowing eyes that blinked slowly, weakly. Her short silver hair was matted to her forehead. She gasped, her tiny hands scratching at the glass. Jack's chest tightened. "No, no, no," he breathed, "don't you give up." He dropped his toolkit, pulling out a laser cutter. The edge of the chamber had sealed from heat damage. Every second counted. Sparks danced around him as he carved a wide arc into the door, then he kicked it open. Thick smoke hit him full in the face. The girl fell forward, collapsing into his arms, choking, her body barely warm. Without thinking, Jack tore off his own oxygen mask and slipped it gently onto her face. She blinked, her breathing slowed. He coughed, gagging at the acrid air, but he didn't let go. Her hands clung to his glove. Jack didn't know her name, she didn't speak. But when their eyes met, something passed between them, not fear, not panic, something quieter. "Trust." He adjusted his grip and carried her through the corridors, one hand holding her weightless frame, the other scanning for breathable air or emergency supplies. Finally, he found it, a broken doorway labeled in alien script, the storage room. He kicked it open, old tanks lined the walls. He checked them frantically, most were empty, one hissed when he twisted the valve. Oxygen. Jack collapsed beside it, breathing deep, lungs burning. He clipped a secondary mask to the tank and fitted it gently to the girl's small face. She was breathing now, slowly, evenly. He leaned against the wall. "You're okay," he whispered. The girl watched him silently, her eyes bright against the shadows. She picked up a piece of wire from the floor and began scratching shapes into the dust. 3 figures, one tall, one medium, one small. Then she circled the smallest one and tapped her own chest. "Her family." Jack looked away, his throat clenched. He pulled a protein bar from his suit pocket and offered it. She sniffed, cautious, then took a small bite. Her lips curled upward, a smile, small, tired, but real. It was the first smile he'd seen in days. Then, zump, he froze. Thump thump. Metal on metal's heavy, irregular echoing. He turned off his helmet lights. The girl stiffened, her tiny hand grabbed his arm, she was trembling. Jack pressed a finger to his lips, though she might not understand the gesture. A shadow passed outside the room. Through a crack in the door, Jack saw it. A tall, lumbering figure, part metal, part flesh, stitched together with broken armor plates. A single red eye blinked inside a helmet. Half of its face was burned, the other half fused with machinery. A cyborg pirate. Jack remembered the news reports, rogue scavengers preying on alien ships. They killed for loot, tech, sometimes for fun. He held the girl close. She buried her face into his shoulder. "SHHH," he whispered. "Step drag, step drag." The pirate walked past. Jack let out a shaky breath. "We need to move." He guided the girl through a side exit, slipping silently into another corridor. The scanner in his hand flickered. No clear path, power was fluctuating everywhere. They turned toward the lower deck, the escape pods. Clang! Behind them, the girl had tripped on a loose pipe. The noise echoed like a gunshot. Jack grabbed her and ran. Metal shrieked the cyborg had heard. Jack sprinted through the narrow halls, dragging the girl behind him. The sounds of pursuit grew louder. Metal claws scraped across the floors. He turned sharply, ducking into a maintenance alcove. He held the girl close, covering her mouth gently. The cyborg passed again, its eyes scanning, but it didn't see them. Jack waited 30 seconds, a minute. "You okay?" he whispered. She nodded, tear tracks ran down her cheeks, but she was silent, strong. "You're tough." More corridors, more runnings. They reached engineering. In the center, a tall green-glassed pod. Another cryo chamber. Jack approached. Inside was another alien child. Older, female, her hair a shade darker than the girl, maybe a sibling. "Your sister," he guessed. Eli nodded quickly and pressed her hands to the glass. The cryo unit was barely powered, blinking red. Jack didn't hesitate. He ripped open the side panel, rerouted wires, attached his suit's spare power pack. Sparks flew. Then grains. "Got it." Eli looked at him with wonder. "Friend," she whispered. Jack felt something break inside his chest. Crash. The pirate had found them. It burst through the door. Jack stepped in front of Eli. He had no weapon, just a metal rod. "Come on," he growled. The cyborg raised its arm, a blade attached. Eli grabbed a pipe and hurled it at a nearby panel. Sparks exploded. The distraction stunned the pirate. Jack grabbed Eli and ran up the ladder through smoke and fire. To the escape pod deck. He threw open the first hatch, placed her inside, buckled her in. She held his arm, refusing to let go. "I have to fight him," Jack said, voice breaking. "You have to survive." He placed the last oxygen tube in her lap. "Breathe for both of us." He sealed the pod. She cried, tiny hands on the glass. He turned. The pirate was here. Jack stood between it and the pod. No air left, no energy, just resolve. But he wasn't done yet. Not while she was still watching. Jack stumbled backward, chest heaving, eyes fixed on the approaching cyborg pirate. The corridor shimmered with heat and smoke, the red light of the pod blinking behind him. Eli's tiny face pressed against the escape pod window, eyes wide with terror. Her breath fogged the glass. Jack didn't look away from the threat. He wouldn't give the pirate a chance to strike her down. The pirate stepped forward, slow and deliberate. Jack raised the metal rod in his hand, knees bent in a defensive stance. Each breath burned in his lungs. He'd given his mask to Eli, and now every second dragged like a vice around his ribs. "Come on," Jack rasped. The pirate paused for half a heartbeat, then it lunged. Jack dodged left, the blade arm slashing down where he'd been. Sparks flew as it struck the metal floor. Jack swung the rod and landed a glancing blow against the pirate's exposed shoulder, but it did nothing. The cyborg backhanded him across the corridor. Pain burst through his ribs as he hit the wall. His vision blurred. He forced himself to crawl upright again. The pirate turned toward the escape pod. "No." Jack launched himself forward. He tackled the pirate's legs. They both went down in a crash of limbs and armor. The pirate roared in a guttural, mechanical voice. Jack clawed at his tool belt, yanked free a plasma flare, and jammed it against the side of the cyborg's face. A burst of white light. The pirate screamed. Jack scrambled up, grabbed a loose fire extinguisher from the wall, and smashed it into the creature's head. Again, until its red eye flickered and it stopped moving. Not dead, just stunned. Jack limped to the pod. He pressed his gloved hand to the window. Eli stared at him, sobbing. "You're going to be okay," he whispered. He tapped the emergency override panel. The escape pod hissed, engines warming. "Just hold on, they'll find you, they have to." He looked at her for a long moment. Then he hit the launch button. With a soft rumble, the pod detached. Jack watched it vanish into the black, streaking toward a safe orbit. He collapsed. When Jack woke, it was dark, silent. He was lying near the corridor wall, head resting against the bulkhead. The only light came from a flickering display down the hall. His chest ached, lungs burned. He reached for his side, his emergency oxygen tank, empty. But beside him, a backup filter mask dangled from a rusted emergency kit. He slipped it on, stale, recycled air filled his lungs, better than nothing. He stood slowly. The pirate was gone, dragged itself off, or recovered. Either way, Jack had work to do. Eli was safe for now, but the older girl, the one in the cryopod, she was still here, still at risk. Jack limped back toward engineering. The pod glowed dimly, the girl inside hadn't moved. He knelt beside her. Her features were so similar to Eli's, same skin tone, same silver-tinted hair though longer. She looked maybe 12, 13 at most. Her name, Jack realized, was still a mystery. He checked the panel, power levels low again. The suit battery he'd plugged in earlier was nearly drained. He had to move her. He followed the maintenance map to the ship's core, searching for any pod or chamber still functional. Most were destroyed. Power systems were offline or fried. Then he found it, a narrow corridor behind the engine shaft half collapsed. Inside, buried under debris, a working stasis pod blinked green. Perfect. He cleared the path slowly, dragging metal plates aside. Every motion made his head spin. Finally, he returned to the cryopod, disconnected the power lids, and opened the chamber. Cold mist hissed out. The girl didn't stir. Her breathing was faint, steady. Jack wrapped her in a thermal blanket, lifted her gently, and carried her through the wreckage. Halfway there, he heard a noise. A low growl, metal scraping. He turned his head. Another cyborg. Smaller, faster. It stepped from the shadows, single eye glowing. It was missing part of its jaw, revealing twisted metal and cables beneath. Jack bolted. He sprinted through the passage, ducking under hanging wires, dodging exposed beams. The pod was just ahead. The cyborg chased close behind. He reached the stasis unit, slammed his hand onto the control panel. Come on, come on. The pod opened. He placed the girl inside, sealed it, activated life support. The light turned greens. Jack turned just as the cyborg leapt. It tackled him to the floor. Its claws raked across his chest plate, sparks flying. Jack grunted, barely keeping the sharp edge from his throat. He grabbed the emergency light from his belt, a tiny strobe beacon, and jammed it into the cyborg's eye. Flash, flash, flash. The machine screamed, recoiling. Jack kicked it away and scrambled to his feet. He didn't try to fight. He ran back toward the ship's memory core. If the ship still had an intact memory system, maybe it held answers. He found it tucked behind the old control deck, a large spherical node pulsing faint blue light. He plugged in his wrist comm. Alien text flowed across the screen. He hit translate. Biosignature match detected. Subject 3, human status, active. Subject 1, Kira, cryo, status, stable. Subject 2, Eli, pod launched. Kira. Her name was Kira. Jack exhaled. He saw another alert flashing. Royal Registry, high priority asset, protection protocol breached. Royal? These girls weren't just passengers, they were the reason the pirates attacked, bounty targets. And now he was tangled in it. Something shifted in the shadows. He turned. The first cyborg. Limping, damaged but alive. Its blade arm was lowered. It didn't attack. Instead, it pointed to the screen. She is the princess. Its voice was glitched, torn between synthetic and flesh. Jack stared. You knew hers. It nodded slowly. I was her protector until they turned me, until I failed. Its voice shook. But you saved her. It stepped forward, placed its blade into the ship's power socket. Electricity surged. The memory core lit up, power levels stabilized. The cyborg system sparked wildly. You will need this. Jack stepped back. What are you doing? Finishing what I began. With a final surge, the cyborg collapsed. Its energy bled into the ship, stabilizing systems, recharging the stasis pod. Jack stared at the flickering lights. Kira was safe, Eli was in orbit. And maybe, just maybe, someone had heard the escape pod signal. He looked down at the memory core, a flashing button. A transmit emergency beacon. He pressed it. Somewhere in space, a pulse of light leapt into the dark. And Jack, exhausted, slumped to the floor. He smiled. Hold on, girls, help is coming. Jack's back rested against the cool metal wall of the memory core chamber, every breath shallow, every muscle aching. The emergency beacon had been sent. A signal had burst through the black, one cry for help against the weight of an empty galaxy. He didn't know if anyone would come. But he hoped. He had to. His eyes drifted toward the stasis pod where Kira slept. The soft green light flickered steadily. Her face was peaceful, frozen but stable. She was safe. For now. But Jack knew this ship wouldn't last. The hull groaned around him, stress fractures forming from the earlier battles. The air was thinning faster now. Backup power was draining across all decks. He stood up, knees shaking. His oxygen filter was still giving him minutes, 10, maybe 15, but there was no luxury of rest. Somewhere in this wreck, danger still lurked. The second cyborg had vanished after their last clash. Too quiet, too fast, too smart. And that meant it was hunting. Jack accessed the ship's systems again through the memory core console. The alien interface pulsed with streams of translated data. Searching crew manifests. Results: crew deceased, 97 confirmed fatalities, 2 life signs active. Himself and Kira. He scrolled further. Old logs came up, video clips, text fragments, sensor records. He watched one entry, a girl, Kira, laughing beside Eli in a garden atrium, sun pouring through wide transparent panels. Both wore simple robes marked with subtle crests. Behind them stood a tall figure, her former protector. The cyborg Jack had seen sacrifice itself. He watched them for a moment, feeling the ache in his chest grow. These weren't just cargo, they were someone's daughters, maybe royalty, but that didn't matter now, not in this broken place. What mattered was keeping them alive. His eyes narrowed as he saw something strange. A time-stamped log entry marked 3 hours before the attack. Unauthorized access detected, core maintenance level. Jack frowned. He dug deeper. Surveillance feeds still worked, some of them. A camera from near engineering flickered to life. A blurred figure moved past it quickly, not a pirate, not a crew member, something else. He enhanced the frame. It looked like a drone, but different, spindly, low-slung, multi-limbed. An infiltrator. Jack cursed under his breath. This wasn't just an ambush. Someone had planted a saboteur on board before the pirates arrived. That changed everything. He checked the map overlay, core maintenance. The infiltrator had moved through that section just before the attack, and its signal still faint, still present. Still active. Jack's jaw tightened. He exited the memory chamber, making sure Kira's pod was sealed tight, and locked the bulkhead behind him. He'd need to find the infiltrator, not just to stop it, but to learn who had sent it. He moved down the central spine of the ship, weaving through half-collapsed corridors, ducking through exposed ducts. Sparks flickered from broken power lines above. The deeper he went, the more damaged the ship became. Core maintenance was below engineering, a level rarely accessed by crew, narrow passages, dense machinery, coolant tanks, heat sinks. If something was hiding, it would be here. Jack descended the last ladder into a pitch-black space. His helmet lamp flicked on, casting long shadows through a forest of broken support beams and dangling cables. He stepped forward and froze. Click. A pressure sensor. He leapt sideways just as a blade dropped from above. It slammed into the floor with a deafening clang, barely missing his shoulder. Too close. Jack rolled and brought up his scanner. A signal blinked. Above him, he turned his light upwards and saw it. A long skeletal machine clung to the ceiling like an insect. 4 arms, serrated claws, a single green optic that blinked rapidly. Its chassis bore no insignia, sleek, quiet, efficient. Not pirate-made. Corporate. Military. Whatever it was, it had no reason to keep him alive. It dropped. Jack dove behind a coolant tank as the infiltrator hit the ground, slicing through steel with one blade. Sparks rained down. Jack pulled out his flare pistol, only one shot. He aimed, waited. The machine darted forward. He fired. Boom. The flare struck its optic. The light blinded it momentarily. It screamed not in pain but in distortion. Its audio systems glitched as it staggered backward. Jack ran. He moved fast through the maintenance grid, leading the drone into tighter corridors. He had no plan, only instinct. He ducked into a storage bay, sealed the blast door, and grabbed an old emergency torch from a rack. Seconds later, metal screeched behind him. The door bent inward. He held the torch up like a sword, light humming at its tip. The infiltrator burst in. They fought. Metal slammed against metal. Jack's suit took glancing blows, his shoulder burned. He struck the machine's knee joint. It cracked, but it kept coming. Then he saw it, a junction panel. Exposed. Electrified. He grabbed the infiltrator by its twisted limb and shoved it sideways. Into the panel. Electric arcs leapt through the machine. It spasmed, screaming in digital tones. Jack watched as it collapsed, smoke rising. He fell to one knee, panting. But it was done. The infiltrator was dead. And its memory core. He pried it loose. A black hexagonal cube still warm. He stuffed it into his gear pouch and made his way back toward the main ship. As he climbed toward the memory chamber, his wrist beacon blinked. Signal. He stopped. A small blue light on his comm screen pulsed. He opened the channels. Crackling static. Then, this is the UNS Resolute. We received a distress signal. Repeat, rescue vessel inbound. If you are receiving this message, respond. Jack gasped. He activated the comm. This is Jack Renner. I'm on board the freighter Viren's Grace. One alien child launched in pod seconds, still in stasis. I repeat, both alive. I need extraction. There was a pause. Then a voice returned. Jack, we have your location, 8 to 23 minutes. Hold position. Jack leaned against the wall, shaking with relief. He laughed softly, breathless. They're coming, he whispered. He reached Kira's pod and placed his hand gently against the glass. Her breathing was steady. Just a little longer. Then, from the corridor behind him, a soft metallic click. Not again. He turned, but it wasn't the infiltrator. It was another pirate. The third, slimmer than the others, faster, with eyes like shards of burning crystal. It didn't speak. It just raised its plasma rifle. Jack ducked behind the pod. Plasma bolts ripped through the room, lighting up the darkness in flashes of death. He grabbed a shield plate from the floor, held it in front of him as he moved. He had no weapons left. No tools. Just himself. He had to draw it away from Kira. He bolted down the corridor, firing his comm back to the Resolute. New contact, armed pirate on board, engaging, get here fast. He sprinted, heart hammering. The pirate chased. But Jack knew this ship now, every corridor, every twist. He led the attacker toward the aft section, where the ship's old reactor still leaked heat. He ducked into the control room, shut the door. Locked it. Then waited. Above, the Resolute came into orbit. Inside the bridge, Captain Tomra watched the display. Prepare the boarding team, she said. Below them, fire flickered inside the wreck. Jack stood bruised and bleeding as the final pirate broke through the door. He held the detonator in his hand. Not for the ship, but for the pressure locks in this chamber. He activated it. A rush of gas vented through the room, blasting the pirate backward. It hit the far wall, dazed. Jack tackled it. They struggled. And then finally it stopped moving. Jack fell to the floor, coughing. His comm beeped. Jack, this is the Resolute. We're docking. Medical team inbound. He smiled faintly. About time. Inside the hangar bay of the UNS Resolute, the rescue shuttle hummed with readiness. 4 crew members stood at attention in the deployment corridor, suited in dark red exo armor emblazoned with white Medcross insignia. Each carried a mix of medical gear, field scanners, and compact weaponry. Their faces were tense. In the center of the group stood Lieutenant Ryan Jalen, medic first class, adjusting the strap on his emergency trauma pack. He turned to the pilot, a woman with cropped silver hair. Open bay doors, engage thermal shielding, we're going in hot. Copy that, launching in 30. The shuttle lifted off with a thunderous roar, slicing through the dark toward the broken wreck of the alien freighter below. Its engines pulsed white as the ship banked against the shattered gravitational drift left in the wake of the pirate ambush. In the bridge of the Resolute, Captain Tomra watched silently, her fingers tapping a steady rhythm against the railing. Bring our medbay online, she ordered, and prep for pediatric integration. This isn't just a rescue, it's a reunion. Inside the freighter, Jack crouched against the far wall of the reactor chamber. Smoke curled around the twisted remains of the final pirate, whose armor now steamed where heat and pressure had ruptured it open. His hands trembled, blood dotted his suit sleeve. The oxygen meter on his backup tank blinked in angry red. 90 seconds. Jack keyed his wrist comm. Resolute, the last pirate's down. I repeat, hostiles are clear. Kira is stable in stasis. My air is almost gone. Copy, Jack, your signal is locked. Touchdown in 1 minute, hang in there. He chuckled dryly. Easy for you to say. He staggered down the corridor toward the docking bay. His legs burned. His breath came sharp and ragged. Every movement echoed like thunder in the dying ship. Behind him, reactor systems failed in slow succession. The once mighty freighter was becoming a tomb. When he reached the access point, he collapsed beside the bulkhead, panting. He looked up through the viewport and saw it, the shuttle, cutting through smoke and debris like a blade of light. It latched onto the docking ring with a magnetic thud. Air hissed through the seal. The inner door opened. Ryan was the first through. Jack Renner. Jack gave a half waves. Present mostly. Ryan knelt, snapped on a portable oxygen mask and pressed it to Jack's face. Air rushed in, sharp, cold life. You're a damn legend, Ryan muttered. Jack exhaled long and slow. Get the girl, the older one, Kira. Cryopod just past the main shaft, stable for now. Ryan nodded to two team members. With me's double times. Jack watched them vanish down the corridor, then tried to sit up. Pain flared in his ribs. He groaned, slumping back. Nope, staying here a sec. Moments later, the team returned, Kira's cryopod secured between two hover braces. The girl inside was still pale, still asleep, but alive. Jack forced himself to his feet. Let's go home. Aboard the Resolute, Eli stood near the observation window, her glowing eyes watching the distant silhouette of the broken freighter drift through space. Her hands clutched a blanket. She didn't speak, but her gaze never wavered. When the docking alert chimed, she turned, ears perking slightly. A medic knelt beside her. Eli, he said gently, they're here, come see. She followed. The airlock door opened with a hiss. Jack stepped through, limping, bruised, supported by Ryan. Behind him floated Kira's pod. Eli gasped. She ran forward. Jack crouched just in time to catch her in his arms. She squeezed him tightly, her face pressed into his shoulder. You came back, she whispered. He nodded, eyes damp. I promised. Medical staff rolled Kira's pod into the bay. Ryan adjusted the controls, initiating a slow thaw cycle. Eli looked at the pods, then at Jack. Sister. He smiled. Soon. Kira woke 2 hours later. Her eyelids fluttered, her breath quickened. She sat up slowly, confusion in her eyes, then fear. Jack stepped into view. You're safe, this is a human ship. Your sister here, she's waiting for you. Kira's voice was raw. Eli's. Right here. Eli ran forward, tears on her cheeks. Kira opened her arms and wrapped her sister into a tight embrace. For a long time, they just held each other. Jack looked away, giving them the moment. Captain Tomra stepped beside him. We're routing back to the nearest station. Your vitals are stabilizing. Medbay says you're lucky. They're luckier, Jack said softly. You didn't have to do all this. I know. Why did you? Jack didn't answer immediately. Then he looked toward the girls. Because no one else was going to. In the days that followed, the freighter was scuttled. Its memory core recovered. Investigations launched. The infiltrator's black cube sent back to Earth for decryption. Jack stayed aboard the Resolute with the girls. Eli clung to his side almost constantly. Kira, though slower to trust, began asking questions. She wanted to know about humans, about Jack, about everything. He answered each one with patience. At night, they ate together in the crew mess, sitting at a table near the viewport. Eli would draw with crayons given by a nurse. Kira began reading human language storybooks. Jack slept in a cot beside their room. Until one day, Kira approached him. Are we going to be sent away again? Jack hesitated. I don't know, maybe to a colony, maybe somewhere safe. I don't want safe, I want us. Eli nodded beside her. Jack looked at them and something shifted in his chest. Captain Tomra signed the guardianship order herself. Unorthodox, she muttered, handing Jack the data pad. But you earned it, and frankly, they need someone like you. Jack nodded. I need them too. You know this changes everything, right? Yeah, finally, for the betters. 6 months had passed since the UNS. Resolute had pulled Jack, Eli, and Kira from the brink. Now they lived on a quiet colony outpost known as Varen's Landing, nestled near the blue foothills of a terraformed moon. Green fields stretched toward distant cliffs, and the sky cycled soft lavender hues as twin suns passed overhead. Jack stood outside a modest prefab unit, sleeves rolled up as he planted small fruit saplings beside the porch. His hands were dirty, his shoulders ached, but he smiled. Behind him, laughter echoed. Eli ran barefoot through the grass, chasing a mechanical butterfly drone that buzzed in wide loops. Her silver hair shimmered in the light and her eyes sparkled with quiet joy. Kira sat beneath a shade tree nearby, a datapad open on her lap. She read slowly, lips moving as she practiced the human language. Every few minutes she glanced up to check on Eli. Jack leaned on the shovel and watched them both. "You ever think we'd end up here?" he asked aloud, mostly to himself. "No," Kira said softly, "but I hoped." She looked older now. Not physically, alien development was strange to read, but something in her presence had changed. Grounded, aware, she wasn't just surviving anymore, she was choosing to live. Jack walked over and sat beside her. "You finished that book yet?" She nodded twice. "I like the ending. The girl doesn't go back to her planet, she stays with her friend, they build a new house, they grow flowers." Jack glanced toward the garden patch he'd been working on. "Guess we're doing the same." "Ours has better flowers," Kira said with a small smirk. Eli flopped down in the grass next to them, breathless. "The butterfly won't land." Jack handed her a piece of fruit. She took it happily, leaning against his side. "Maybe next time," he said. She nodded, already munching. Their home wasn't big, one shared sleeping room, a small kitchen, a wash chamber, but it was enough. Jack worked part-time in the colony's repair bay, fixing shuttle relays and plasma pumps. He always made it home before sundown. Kira had joined a learning circle with other alien children. Her vocabulary expanded daily. She showed Jack her sketches, a mix of symbols and shapes that mirrored the star patterns above them. Eli made friends easily. She spoke little but laughed loudly. She clung to Jack's hand in crowded places and watched everything with wide, curious eyes. There were hard days. Sometimes Eli would wake crying. Memories, maybe. Jack would hold her until she calmed. Sometimes Kira would sit outside after dark, silent for hours. Jack never pushed, he only sat near. They'd been hurt, all three of them. But they were healing. One afternoon, a courier drone arrived with a letter. Jack opened it slowly. It was from Captain Tomra. "Jack, final reports confirm the infiltrators' memory core carried instructions from a covert weapons syndicate. They used the pirate crew as a cover. The goal wasn't theft, it was elimination. Targeted. Kira was the real objective. Her lineage remains classified, but you saved something important. If you're ever ready to return, Human Fleet always has a place for you, but if not, stay safe, you've earned it." Jack folded the letter. He didn't show it to the girls. Not because he didn't trust them. Because they had enough burdens. And here on this quiet colony with warm wind and open fields, they didn't need to be anything but a family. They celebrated Eli's birthday that fall. No one knew her real birth date, so Jack let her choose. She pointed at a day on the calendar with a star icon and giggled. "That one, it looks happy." Kira baked a cake using local fruit and flour. It collapsed in the middle. Eli called it perfect anyway. Jack gave her a soft wool scarf dyed in teal and orange. She wore it every day for a week, even when it was too warm. "You look like a little explorer," Jack said. "I am," Eli whispered, clutching the scarf. "Where to next?" "Here," she said, smiling. "I want to stay here." Winter came to Varen's landing in quiet waves. Frost kissed the windows. The fields turned silver at dawn. Jack lit the stove each morning. He made tea. The girls would pad into the kitchen wrapped in blankets, yawning, blinking slowly. Mornings were soft, slow, full of comfort. At night, they read together. Eli fell asleep first, always curled beside Jack on the couch. Kira stayed up longer. Sometimes she asked hard questions. "Do you think the people who sent the infiltrator are still out there?" Jack nodded, "Probably." "Will they come back?" "Not while I'm here." She was quiet for a while. "Promise." He looked into her glowing eyes. "Promise." Spring arrived like a song. Wildflowers bloomed across the hills. Birds built nests in the prefab's eaves. The repair bay installed new solar panels, and Jack taught a class on mechanical diagnostics. Kira joined a mentorship program, helping younger students with language and basic engineering. Eli got a kitten, it followed her everywhere. On their first anniversary together, Kira surprised Jack with a hand-stitched banner. 3 stick figures under a star-covered sky. Below it, in careful script. "Thank you for giving us a home." Jack traced the letters with his fingers. "You gave me one too." On clear nights, they lay on a blanket in the backyard, watching constellations shift. Eli would point and whisper, "That one looks like you." Jack would squint, "Which part?" "The tall one standing between the little stars." Kira would roll her eyes but smile. "That one is yours," Jack told her once, pointing to a long blue arc in the sky. "It's quiet, steady, always there." She didn't say anything. But the next day, she sketched that same constellation in her journal. Life continued. Soft, steady, strong. And in that quiet corner of the galaxy, 3 broken souls stitched themselves together again. Not as survivors, but as family.